Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of Sprout HR Experts Season 6. I'm Kiara, and I will be your host for this webinar. Thank you so much to everyone who took the time off of their busy schedules to join us today. We all know that it's still a work day for the most of us, but you still carved out some of your time to join us for this extra special event. And again, we thank you. We have another exciting episode in line for you in today's Sprout HR Experts webinar series, as we will be talking about effective leadership styles and tactics to get the most productivity and motivation among employees today. If you like more webinars like this one, please don't forget to follow our social media pages. That's at Sprout HR Tech, and be on the lookout for all new episodes. We are also live on Facebook and YouTube, so guys, feel free to share this exciting event to your friends, your colleagues, and even your family. Just to give you a quick introduction on who we are, Sprout Solutions is the leading HR and payroll solutions provider in the Philippines that aims to help businesses transform and automate their HR processes. Just like the new normal of virtual festivities and Filipino spirit, we celebrate innovations by helping your business adapt digitally. Once again, a hearty welcome to everyone tuning into this exciting episode of Sprout HR Experts by Sprout Solutions. So I'm sure you guys are looking forward to learning more about today's topic, but before we get into that, let's first start with a short icebreaker. To join, simply answer the poll on your screens. So guys, what do you think is an important strategy for reta- for employee retention amidst the pandemic? Is it having opportunities for growth, empowering your employees, positive feedback and employee appreciation, or having trust and respect in the workplace? Personally, for me, it's the last one. I think trust, having an environment or cultivating an environment of trust and respect amongst your team is very important. All right, let's just go ahead and wait for the others to cast in their votes. Oh, we see a lot of votes piling up for positive feedback and employee appreciation. A lot more coming in for having trust and respect in the workplace. All right. So, guys, feel free to answer our very short icebreaker just to get things started. Okay. So, the results are in. 52% answered positive feedback and employee appreciation. And second to that is having trust and respect in the workplace. Third is having opportunities for growth. And lastly, we have empowering employees. All right. Thank you so much for sharing with us all of your answers. So now let's start spicing things up. For those of you who have been tuning in with us for a while now, you already know what comes next, and you guessed it. There will be a raffle towards the end of the webinar. To join, you have to collect all three keywords to get a chance to win a 200 peso Grab gift card. So after collecting all the three keywords that will be flashed on the screen throughout the webinar, you have to follow Sprout's official Twitter page. Again, that's at Sprout HR Tech, and comment all the three keywords on the pinned tweet on our Twitter page. We will be announcing the lucky winner at the end of the session, and we'll be sending the prizes via Twitter DM afterwards. Okay, so make sure you tune in as we uncover everything on today's topic. Now, I'm sure you guys are as excited as I am to know the raffle keyword. So here we go. The first raffle keyword is retention. Again, the first raffle keyword is retention. While you guys are logging into your Twitter account, I just want to let you know that there will be a fireside chat later on where you can ask our panelists and our speaker questions about today's topic, retaining internal talents and employees amidst the pandemic. So start listing down your questions and we will be addressing as much of them as we can later on. Now, I know you guys are excited. So without further ado, I would like to introduce today's speaker. She is a highly motivated professional who is an invaluable member of the Q2 HR Solutions team. She has more than 26 years of sales and client management experience in Europe and Asia. Sarah has been living in the Philippines for 22 years and has twice served on the British Chamber of Commerce Philippines and is an active member of Springboard Foundation, a non government organization in the Philippines founded in 2002, where she served as the president of the Board of Trustees. A truly talented individual with strong leadership and networking skills, she is known in the industry as a networking virtuoso, since her rich network of contacts has helped her provide valuable assistance to startups and growing companies in the Philippines. Everyone, let's give a round of applause for Miss Sarah McLeod.
I love the silent applause of Zoom. It's always very different. So yeah, welcome. Nice to see so many people here today. I'm just going to stop sharing so I can see my screen. That was an interesting survey. So I think I'd be able to add some of my inputs for that survey in my presentation. So, but yeah, always interesting to do little surveys about that. And it's always interesting that generally there are one or two things in a survey that come out on top. And we're noticing, I don't know whether you're noticing when you're meeting your clients or talking to your people, that there is a little bit of a change in terms of what people are looking for at the moment. So welcome and thank you, Sprout, for inviting me today. I'm looking forward to taking part, and I do love the Q&A at the end. That's my favorite part. So moving on, what are we going to expect today? So on the next slide, you'll see that my agenda today is really about the new work environment and also how to retain and motivate employees. So on the next slide, you'll see the new work environment. So we've all heard this. Is it the now new working environment? Is it the new work environment? There's lots of different terminologies that are being used at the moment. So on my next slide, as we get used to, I'm not doing my own slides, as you noticed, so we're just, the magic word apparently is moving forward. So the future of work, we all know that COVID-19 has had huge changes around the world, but also here in the Philippines, because for many companies here in the Philippines, the traditional workforce being in the office, maybe having flexi time, working, between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and any time between 7 and 10 was okay coming in, much like ourselves in Q2. We all worked in the office. There wasn't really a work from home model that we could work for. And of course, that all changed last March. And we all had approximately 4 days to suddenly change from how we were working before to how we're still working now in many cases. And it was a mad panic across the country. I can tell you that we have many clients that we helped move from work to home base. And I'm sure all of us had the Grab taxis, the work vans, moving laptops and desktops around the country to make sure people could work from home. And then, of course, looking at their data security, looking at VPNs, looking at how productivity, and all this had to be done in basically a week. We're now looking at the same scenario, which is happening tomorrow, which is why I'm in the office today, because we move to skeletal workforce again tomorrow. So we have to future-proof our organizations. And everyone should recognize and understand that there will be things that you'll be up against and still up against. Who knew that it would be 18, 16, 17 months, 18 months? It's going to be 2 years. We also cannot discount the stress involved in our people, and we need to understand around the emotional support that they're needed. But for me today, I'm going to focus on the office environment in terms of how we can help with stress in the office and working rather than mental health, and reiterating that communication is the key to everything, every time, all the time. Communication will come up a lot. I think my glasses are glaring on the light, so I'll take them off. I think I can remember. So on my next slide, we're going to share with you a little bit of data. So 25% more workers are going to need, in the next 8 years to 2030, So that's 1 in 16 workers will need to find different occupation. Things are changing now at such a fast pace in terms of AI, in terms of technology. So the business landscape is going to change. And have you looked at your organization 8 to 10 years hence? Have you had this conversation with your leadership team about what you think it's going to look like? And are you going to be looking at profit driven, or are you going to be looking at revenue driven? Because those are two very different strategies. Moving on my next slide, you'll see that there are jobs with the highest physical proximity. I'm not going to go line by line, and I know that you're going to get a copy of these slides anyway. You're welcome to them. And you'll have a look that for on-site customer interaction. So what does that mean? That's really retail stores, banks, government offices. I don't know what industries you're all in. And some of them have migrated to e-commerce. And actually those stores and those retail companies that migrated to e-commerce straight away last year are the ones that are still surviving now. Leisure and travel still highly hit. We know that going into lockdown again, no restaurants are open, the hotels are closed, you can't travel into Ireland, you can't travel even through Luzon. So this has a continued and continuous challenge, but some restaurants have moved to be able to deliver food, or you can pick up food, and service roles, but this is going to curtail labour demand in this area. And then computer-based office work in this arena, really only moderate physical proximity is going to be needed, and moderate number of human interactions. I'm sure that many of you in your organisations have already started looking at or decided which of your roles will be the ones that can stay at home and work from home and won't be disrupted in productivity or anything, and those that need to come back to the office, and those that are potentially a hybrid. So moving on to my next slide. This is a survey done by McKinsey Research, and I'm sure you've all heard of them. And they researched with 800 senior executives, and 2 out of 3 know that they have deployed AI in warehouses so that they don't have to have so much interaction, grocery stores, call centres, manufacturing plants, to reduce the workplace density and cope with surges in demand. For us, the change from traditional work to office, like I mentioned last year in March, we were very traditional in the office. Yes, we had flexi time on a personal note, but that was very quickly abrupted where we all had to go work from home. We had no choice. We had to cope. So moving on, continuing with the McKinsey research, there are a different mix of occupations that may emerge, affecting mainly the low wage, or the guys that are starting to work and they're in entry positions. And such growth in the segment may affect organizational culture and overall employer motivation. The ongoing conversation is, how will part-time work become popular here in the Philippines? For those of you who don't know, in the UK, where I come from originally, many, many years ago, America, Australia, part-time work is actually normal, particularly for mothers, for people who don't particularly want to work full-time. There's also what we call job share. So are we now looking at not an accountability or a job description, but taking a job description that would traditionally be taken by one person, breaking it down into a process and seeing whether 2 people can do the process and finish the same accountability, but doing it part-time? So you may have started to look at that, and that may become something new in the Philippines. We're seeing a little bit of this, but not so much at the moment. Companies like IKEA that are coming here are looking at that in their stores and in their warehouses. Consultancy work, we're finding from our clients that they don't necessarily want to hire someone full-time on a full-time employment status, because at the moment we're all seeing in many industries that the recovery is a little bit like this, the W. So you go up, and then because the government, we have no control over what the government does, may go down, and then it may go up. And that's what many of us are experiencing at the moment. So bringing in a consultant to help, or a project-based person to help when you're on the up, means that you don't have that hassle of keeping them when the W is on the downward trend. And working in your own time to deliver what's needed. And I know this is one of the, looking at my survey here, the trust, 36%. When you're working from home, there has to be a high level of trust from both sides, from you as a leader and from your people, and vice versa, so that you're looking at outcome-based and output-based. And it doesn't matter, and it doesn't have to be done between 8 and 5. If you have families and you've got children who are being schooled at home, which, by the way, I am in awe of anyone in this country for the last 16 months, having your children at home and helping them with their education, absolutely in awe. I'm glad my children are grown up. But it means that if it's output based and you have a high level of trust, and then you have your productivity or scorecards, or however you measure, whatever system you use to measure that, you have that high level of trust that the work will get done in the time that it's supposed to get done, which allows for people at home to be able to manage the school hours, the family hours, making sure that they have their quiet time to do their meetings or the work that they need to do. And that, again, takes a high level of trust and a high level of communication. So moving on, continuing with McKinsey research, there needs to be a facilitation of workforce transitions. So organizations have to continue to look at what they need to upskill. Digital dexterity, I can't even say the word, will outweigh tenure and experience. We all know that. So we all know, whether you are entering the workforce at 2021 or you're like me at the latter end, my birthday last week, somebody mentioned 55, what is it that I need to learn and continue to learn? We can't afford to be left behind, no matter what age we are. Because if you're going to move forward in your careers, we have to accept that the digital world is here to stay, and it's just getting more and more important and more key in all organizations. Businesses can start on a granular analysis of what work can be done remotely by focusing on the tasks involved rather than the whole jobs. So remember, I said before, we all know the traditional job descriptions, but maybe you can break those job descriptions down. What can be done at home, and what, if at all, has to be done in the office? Business can also do occupational shifts by focusing on what skills to do, rather than the traditional hiring from academic degree to actually skill sets. And I think that's also something that's going to change. It's very traditional here in this country to hire people who are graduates. In America and Australia and UK, that isn't so much the case. It's more on what skills you have, what you can bring to the table. So we look at skills first, not college degree. The college degree is great because it shows that you have commitment to finish something. 3-4 years now that you can start and finish something, so you have that level of commitment, but it doesn't always give you the skills that you actually physically need to work in the workforce these days. So on my next slide, we did a little bit of research, and thank you to my marketing team from Gartner.com, which is a very good research place to go and have a look. And the conversation is around the rise of we working philosophy. So we've all heard the new normal, the now normal, the next normal, and this is the rise of the we working. And this really comes from the two highest scoring in the survey, which was appreciation and a feedback, and also trust. So we working will encourage businesses to create small, autonomous, high-performing teams that form, converge, and act and dismantle as assignments change. So this is fueled by autonomy. That is one of the wishes in a workforce, that you have accountability, that you have autonomy, that you have the trust that you're going to deliver, and trust amongst teammates that together you can come up with a solution. Much like I'm sure you've all heard about the Apple and the Google pods that they have. They have the most funky working offices. There's one being built in London, which is just incredible, so funky and so different to most other offices. And they have little pods where Steve Jobs, when he was alive, would send 4 people, 6 people max into a room. They were given a task, and then they had to come up with a solution, come up with a delivery, whether it was something to do with the inside the phone, how to make it more efficient, whether it was even coming up with the Apple Play that most of us have now. That came out of one of his little pod rooms. And then they have that 2 pizza rule. You know, sometimes I'm sure we've all experienced where we've been in a meeting with 10, 15, 20 people, and it just seems that nothing gets done because basically that's too many people in a room. So there's the 2 pizza room. If you have a meeting where 2 pizzas won't feed everybody in that room, you have too many in that room. And so whilst there's always a desire to have as many people thinking, maybe it's better if you want to have 20 people thinking, maybe make 4 or 6 little pods, have them go away with the questions and then come back later. So how to retain and motivate people now? So that's on my next slide. And so since a vast majority of companies today are challenged, we know that, doing some spring cleaning of manpower resources seems like an easy automatic response. We all have that in our organizations. I'm sure if most of the people here are HR people, you've had conversations around headcount rationalization. Do you need so many people in your organization at the moment? Those tough conversations have literally been happening for the last 16 months and they're not going away. So it seems easy. We're going to spring clean the manpower. We're going to go through. But before you pull the plug and do something like that, remember the spark you once saw in your team, and the spark brought you various highlights, enabling you to reach success one way or another. So moving forward is recognizing work achievements. So this is nitty gritty. So this is really just sharing with you some of the things that we've done. And I'd love to hear in the Q&A some of the things that you've done or additional questions. So whilst finances are important, employees want to also feel recognized and that their work achievements in other ways. So we all know the housekeeping, that you have a good salary, you have HMO here, that all your mandatory benefits are paid and all your basics are covered. And that's what we all expect when we work. 100%, we're all in that same boat, that we need to have those basics covered. But then there's the other things in work life that keeps you engaged, that keeps you motivated. So we have certain systems within our organization that help people feel that emotional connection. And at the moment when we're on Zoom like this, it's very difficult to have that emotional connection. We've hired people in our organization that I've not met yet. And that in the old days, before COVID, that would never have happened, because we were in the organization, we would have a one-to-one, we'd have a new hire conversation, we'd meet them in a town hall, we'd meet them in the organization. That doesn't happen. The only way I've met some of the guys in the organization, because they're working from home, is like this. So that's really difficult. That invisible magic that you get has gone. So you have to find other ways to make the most of it, of how you can get that emotional connection. So we have what's called a house point system. This is actually, I hope most of you have either read or seen the Harry Potter movies. And in Harry Potter, they have their 4 houses. And of course, we all know that Slytherin was the bad one in the movies. So we have that. It's a very British system. I grew up with it when I was a child. We have in our schools what we call a house point system. And in the UK, it's usually colours. I was gold all through my high school. And then in every competition, whether it was spelling bee or a maths competition or sporting competitions or art competitions, you would be given house points throughout the school year. And then at the end of the year, when you did the recognition day, it would be the highest house point winner per team and then the highest overall. So what we did in Q2 is we made that operational into a business sense. So we all know that we have finance and admin and HR and operations. And some of us have sales and some of us have marketing. So what House Points does, it's in the sorting hat randomly. It places people from all of the traditional teams they work in into different hats. So when we have activities within the organization, you could be working with the CFO, with an entry-level background investigation person, and everything in between. So it enables everyone to get together and work as a team within the different places that they work in, and everybody gets to know each other. And we still do that, albeit by Zoom, but we still do that to this day. And then at the end of each quarter, we have winners, and then we have a winner's circle lunch. We're about to have our first Zoom winner's circle lunch, where we'll deliver food to the winner's circle, and then they have lunch with myself. They have lunch with Trixie, who is the chairman of the company who started Q2, and we just have a nice lunch together. Normally, again, that would be together. And then at the end of the year, we have the top manager and we have the top staff member. And before COVID, they would be sent abroad into Asia. At the moment, they're sent to a high 5-star hotel for their weekend away. And that's part of recognizing them through our values. So very much so using our values as the linchpin of going above or beyond. We have Malasakit, we have Innovate, we have adding value. And so we give house points, and we have ways of monitoring and giving house points linked to our vision, linked to our values. In Q2, you can design your end-to-end performance management system that would help your team become more involved. I'm sure you've all got those as well. And you can also share value of creating maybe flexible benefit model. This is something that we're looking into, because we have in our organization from kind of 22 to me, 55. So the difference that's needed in terms of potentially benefits and flexible benefits, that's what we need. Moving on, stretching goals. Let's ensure that we stretch goals with our people to motivate them, that they can go a little bit further, that they're not just limited to what they're doing. And constant and consistent stretching culminates in a definite end that can feel recovery, that there's no slack. On my next slide, we make our goals crystal clear. So we ensure that everybody knows what the value is in the organization, and it's an essential link that we communicate what our strategies are to move forward and get out of this COVID-19. I think as our organization, we have a town hall every Wednesday afternoon. There's a different topic every week, but we bring everybody together down tools 3 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon for an hour or so to talk about and share what's happening in Q2 with our people and everything else. And then focus on the way. On my next slide, you'll see, take the time to explain the reasons why, and also be open and honest about the challenges. Building trust means that a leadership team has to also be open and honest about what's happening in their organization, so that everybody knows from top to bottom and vice versa what's happening and why, and then how we're going to get out of it, and then what we want from everybody. We always have what we need from everybody. And then figure out what makes your employees tick. They have different backgrounds, we know that. We're all in the same COVID storm, but we're not all in the same boat. We have very different stories. Some of us have families at home, some of us don't, some of us live on our own, some of us have to try and get home to see our families every weekend, and some of us have had to move to different islands but continue to work as if they were in Makati. So the best way is to motivate your employees is to figure out what makes them tick, and then align their personal and professional goals to the role in your company so that they see where they fit. And then give employees an outlet. Very important. I'm sure we all do that once a year or bi-yearly massive survey of 375 questions. We used to do that. What we realized a couple of years ago is actually, even before COVID, emotions change, things change, new clients come in, people leave. So we created what was called our happiness index survey. I'm happy to talk to anybody about this in more detail separately, because it would take an hour to explain it. It took us a while to get here. And we do this every week, but we have very strategic questions that we ask on a week by week basis on how people are feeling, how they're doing, how are they motivated, and they're linked again to our goals of an organization, and they're linked to our values. And with that information each and every week, we can then create programs that will affect people right now, not in 6 months' time, but right now. And then offer a clear path in enhancement, making sure that you solve the employee motivation by showing them where they fit now and where they could potentially go, and then work with them on that journey, not just on what you need to give them, but what do they need to do, because learning is a two-way street. It's not just the organization, it's also the person who's also accountable for that. Number 8 is focusing on providing workplace flexibility. So depending on the nature of your business, you can provide flexibility wherever possible. When you go that extra mile to make an employee's life easier to give you the output that you want, you will get it back in tenfold. So I'm sure all of you are looking at potentially going blended workforce, some at work, some at home, but there are still some positions that could be 100% at home, or they have to be 100% in the office. On slide 9 from Gallup, there's some interesting data here. Again, I won't go line by line. I'm sure you've already read half of it before I get there, and you can have the slides. And make sure that you look at, feel that most of their employees leave because of money, but that's not strictly true. PMAP, who most of you, I'm sure if you're in the HR and management business here in the Philippines, do a survey every year, and money never comes out at top. It's usually about culture. It's usually about trust. It's about location because of traffic, but that will change, I'm sure, when they do their service this year. You think it's about money, but it isn't. And then on the next slide from Happio, invest in people's well-being and psychological safety. I think this is something that has changed the life workforce of anybody, including myself. That carrot and stick approach does not work anymore, particularly through COVID. And you can have a look and ask your own people on how they promote positive well-being and psychological safety in your organizations, because I'm sure you've probably got some managers that are great at it and some that aren't, so they could teach each other and maybe piggyback. So we in Q2 have what we call a clarity break. So that's just a day. We give our people a day which recognizes fatigue. It recognizes the need to just take some time out, where we're not going to call them, we're not going to WhatsApp them. And it's not a holiday, it's not a sick leave, it's a clarity break. Take the day. And then we also have regular, what we call 555 meetings. So these are meetings where they're not around money and they're not around targets. They're about talking about what they're most proud of. So you ask the question, what are you most proud of that you did in the last quarter? What was the one thing that made you the most proud? What was the one thing that gave you the biggest challenge? And then talk about how they resolved it, talk about what they did, and then engage them in a conversation to check in on their values and check in that they're still understanding the goal of the organization, where they fit, and what they're going to be doing in that. So on my next slide from Gallup, so there's some great resources that you can go on and have a look on the internet. That's one of the glories of the internet, to find data to help you communicate to your management teams if you're in HR, and also to your managers to help them understand the importance. Because I truly believe that HR is not just for HR managers. We are all HR. We are all human resources. We have to deal with people. So if you're a leader, you're accountable for those leaders. Now, of course, HR will give the direction. HR will give the support. But if we don't do our part as managers and coach our managers to value that engagement and communication, it stops. If HR is the only one doing it, and then you've got 5 managers and 3 are great at it and 2 aren't, you're going to have 2 teams that are disengaged, but 3 teams that are engaged. So please make sure that as managers, this is the one thing I truly believe in, that we're all HR, we're all accountable for engagement, we're all accountable for communication, and we're all accountable for building that trust in the relationships with our employees. Don't just say that's HR's job, that's our job. We need to make sure that for the greater good, we explain to our teams what's happening. We talk to them about the milestones, and that human need for autonomy, mastery, and purpose is every leader's responsibility. And trust building activities, there are so many out there in the world. Communication builds workers' information, find out of each other, have little games. Don't just go, I don't know, I had a day yesterday where I had Zoom, and there was, you go into a Zoom meeting and you go, hi, right, agenda. maybe instead of doing that all the time, you suddenly say, okay, we're going to play a game. We're going to do we're going to go round the 2 truths and a lie, or we're going to go round and do favorites, just to break the ice and get people understanding each other. That's not just HR's role. You can ask HR for advice, but that's something that you as leaders can do yourselves. And then positive reinforcement. When an employer exceeds their expectations and they drive the company forward, acknowledge that. Acknowledge it publicly. We have our house point system. You may have other ways of doing it, an intranet or an internal communication tool. Find a way that you can actually communicate to everyone. We all love it. Come on, let's be honest. We all love being commended for a job well done or for going over and above. And make sure you foster fairness in your organization, which is very difficult. Fair play, always commitment to fair play. And that's where our house point system really comes into play, because it's a fair system, and anyone from our messenger to someone who cleans your office, to someone who's on reception, to senior management, the game is the same. Absolutely the same. So on my last slide, and I know my time is coming up, motivation is just the start. So look at ways to reward and recognize your people, to drive your productivity on a daily basis. And it's just a stepping stone, and which is why I believe leaders and employees need to communicate their intentions with clarity and then take an action consistently. I think most of us can be consistently inconsistent. So putting systems in place in your organization circles back to communication. Hand on heart, if you make a mistake, admit it. I made a mistake. Oops, I didn't tell you. Oh, I need to realign everybody. And communication, more is never enough. If you think you've explained it, remember it takes 7 times for it to sink in. Explain it again. A change, a new hire, a new client, a lost client. Just keep communicating and keep involving everyone in the organization. And remember that we are all HR. We are all in human resources, and we are all accountable for the people that we work with, the people that we work for, and the people that are our peers on our own level. So thank you very much for having me today. I hope I've been able to get a little bit in the short time, some insights, and always happy to talk to people afterwards if you want a little bit more in depth, because I know house points and happiness index always piques a bit of interest when we talk about them to our clients. So thanks, Bright.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Miss Sarah. I'm sure our audience truly learned a lot from you. I personally picked up a lot as well. I especially agree with you on having an open and honest discussion on company goals with your employees. Now, I know you guys have a lot of thoughts and questions for Miss Sarah, so feel free to use this time to finalize your questions. I can already see some people raising their hands and sharing with us some of their thoughts on the chat box. So guys, remember to type in your questions now. So while you guys are jotting them down, it's time to reveal our second raffle keyword for this webinar. So if you guys are ready, our second raffle keyword is resourcing. Again, our second raffle keyword is resourcing. I hope everyone got that. Make sure to keep track of all of our raffle keywords. So before we reveal the third and final keyword, here at Sprout, it's in our culture to keep practicing work-life integration. So if you're down to learning more about us as a company, take a look at this video.
So you've got your processes, and your company is an oiled machine that runs pretty smoothly, but under the hood, you have problems. You've got managers desperate to know the status of their open positions. Leave requests getting lost in a jumble of emails, SMS and forms, and employees complaining about payroll errors. You've thought about some expensive custom software that would be a pain to maintain, or swimming in all the features of SAP or Oracle, or maybe even outsourcing your payroll altogether. Why can't you find a local, intelligent, well-supported software that caters to your needs as a Philippine company? Well, guess what? Here at Sprout, we've developed a system that just works. One system with all the features you need and without all those that you don't. So what are you waiting for? Get over to sprout.ph and get your systems fixed today.
All right, so I hope you guys picked up a thing or two about Sprout Solutions from that wonderful video. So now it's time to finally announce our third and final keyword. Okay, so make sure to take note. Our third and final keyword is engagement. Again, our third and final raffle keyword is engagement. So to recap, our three raffle keywords are retention, resourcing, and engagement. Again, that's retention, resourcing, and engagement. Again, guys, to win the raffle, you have to follow our official Twitter page with the handles at SproutHRTech and comment these three keywords on our latest pinned post, as that's where we'll be choosing our lucky winner. For the next portion of this webinar, we will be having a fireside chat with our speaker and panelists. So if you have your questions ready, be sure to type them in the chat box. Now, guys, it is my pleasure to welcome back our speaker, Miss Sarah McLeod. And joining her, we have our very own Head of People Operations, Shang Trinidad, and our Employee Engagement Officer and Company Nurse, Alex Javier. Ladies, the floor is yours. Now, audiences, you can now start asking your questions in the Zoom chat. All right, so we have one already sent in by Rodrigo Fernandez. How will you engage employees who are favorites of the supervisors or superiors? Office politics is one of our problems. Thank you. All right, Sarah.
I was just on mute. Eek, office politics. I hate office politics. The only way really to stop this is to make sure that your whatever system you use for your, whether you call it a scorecard or not, is robust and it's not open for personal interpretation. It's very specific on in terms of what the deliverables are of the person. What we introduced a couple of years ago was what we call critical success factors. So when we hire someone, the job description is one thing, but actually, you know, a job description is really talking about a unicorn, and we know they're very difficult to find. So we put down in the first 6 months, what are the critical success factors that a person has to complete in agreement, so it's in agreement with the hiring manager and the person, so that then you can have really specific touch points within that first 6 months that they deliver what they're supposed to deliver. And there's no place there to have anything personal. So you can't have a personal feeling, I like this person or not this person. If they're delivering and you have a system in place to measure that, then that person is a good person. And HR has eyes on that as well. HR, whilst they don't do the scoring and they don't do it, they are the ones that drive it and put together the information. In terms of understanding, to be honest, you just have to rip the bandage off and tell the person that they've got favorites. As a leader, that's what I would do, is say, hang on a minute, that's subjective and that's not fair because that person's delivering, and you have to have that hard discussion. And you have to just keep saying, I won't accept politics. So in our organization, if someone comes to me, I'm just going to say Shang because she's next to me on the screen. Shang comes to me and says, I don't like Louis, he's not fair. I'll then say, well, have you actually gone to Louis and said, this is what I think? And if she says no, I'm going, well, I'm not doing anything. You have to go and talk to your manager about it. Now, if after that conversation that doesn't work, I would then bring Shang and Louis into a room and we would have the discussion and just keep saying there's no politics here. And if you keep verbalizing that and keep communicating that, and as a leader, you pull the person up when you see it happening, gradually it will go away. You'll never be able to get, office politics is since the day of Adam and Eve. You're never going to get rid of it completely, but you can manage it by facing it head on and telling them that you're not going to accept it. It's a difficult one. It really is a difficult one. You have to be brave.
Shag and Alex, do you have anything to add?
Right. So, office politics, favoritism, it's something that's unavoidable. We hate it, but we can address it. I agree with Sarah. Just rip the band-aid, just address it head on, because it has a lot of impacts or disadvantages in the workplace, like increased feelings of resentment, loss of respect for company leadership, etc., etc. Here in Sprout, what we aim for is to practice radical candor. So radical candor is basically caring personally and challenging directly. So at the end of the day, just again, rip the band-aid, talk to your immediate superior or talk to HR, but this is probably what we're going to tell you anyway. Just practice radical candor. Communication is the key because we don't want to see those disadvantages and risks because of politics and favoritism.
I agree. So, on our next question, we have one here from Minda Basa. Minda, it's great to see you again here on Sprout HR Experts. So, she asked, some leaders believe that they can demand more from people working remotely, but happiness surveys are showing this is adding stress on them. How do we balance these as HR?
Again, for me, we're all HR. So, yeah, HR, you bring your leaders together. And that's where it sounds like other people are doing surveys. That's where our happiness index comes out, that we can meet with the leadership and share them the results. It's anonymous, so that's not like we're picking on anyone. We're just saying as a general rule. Me personally, I recently in the last couple of months decided to have a general no meeting, no call Friday. I meet with Trixie. We have our leadership meeting that day. So I made a commitment to the managers that I would try not to call them on a Friday unless it was a client, and not have meetings with them on a Friday if at all possible, to give them that breathing space. And our clarity days, we started with our leadership team, our Exicom. We then instigated it with our Mancom team, and then we told them that they also. So we taught them by showing them how it's done. And then we gave them the autonomy to say, okay, now it's your turn to make sure that you give your people a clarity day. And it's amazing, by just giving one day, a conversation then is opened up about the stress, because I'm there with the Zooms, because you can go 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 with Zoom meetings, whereas in the old days, you'd have to have travel time in between or note-taking time in between. You wouldn't just go 9 to 10 to 11 to 12. It just wouldn't happen. So you have to start from the top. So we started with Clarity Break, and we started by making sure that we're giving people time to do the work, because that's what they need to do. It's not just meetings that do the work.
Agree. So some people might think, wow, work from home, it's such a nice thing to have. It's so easy. But at the end of the day, it's not. It's really not. And what we can do maybe as HR practitioners is we can send out a guide. So we made a remote work playbook so that employees can also know what is expected of them, but at the same time guiding them throughout the process. Because remote work, it's really hard. Again, there's during lunch break when we were in the office, we're just gonna go down and buy. But now, how can you balance everything from being in meetings and then cooking something for lunch, right? So that's where managers come in also. We have to have, like practice of what Sarah mentioned, malasakit. Know what they go through. Other people have different circumstances. Like some employee might live with their kids, right? And some employees might live with their husband or wife. So we all have different circumstances, and we can provide support by talking to them and knowing how we can help them during this time. Because again, work from home is not easy. It is a process, but with proper guidance and communication, I believe this can work in the long run.
Thank you for that, Shag. Now, our next question is closely related to that. So, Eric Nielsen here has asked that many employees have found that they're saving a lot by working from home. The cost of commuting, a meal out, maybe even a bed space or dorm near the office. They'll be demotivated if forced to return back to the office. How do we motivate them if they work just as well from home?
Well, I can only talk personally and from what we're finding with our clients, Eric, nice to see you, is for us internally, before we talked to anyone about coming back to work, we went across the organization and looked at processes that we could do from home. So we have found that there are many positions that they don't need to come to the office. And if they don't need to come to the office and their productivity is fine, then why force that issue? Particularly when most of us have limitations in how many people we can have in the office at any one time at the moment. We then looked at the positions that could be blended, that maybe it's once a week, twice a week, once a month, twice a month, and those that had to be in the office. So we have a guard. When the office reopened, the guard can't work from home. He has to work. That's his job, works at the office. IT, we need somebody from IT in the organization. But did we need the whole team in every day? No. So we looked at how we could, and then we sat down with each manager, with each team. We also did a survey about it. And interestingly enough, we found, so we have a team that does background investigation. They're young. They're generally young. They were desperate to be back in the office. And now they're having to go home again for 2 weeks. They're so sad. So we did a survey. We looked at our organization of what really, so we picked our battles. So you pick your battles, and then what could be at home and what could be blended. But we did say that once we go back to normal, whatever, or whenever that will happen, things like town halls, things like events, because we do lots of fun events, they have to be in the office for that, or wherever that event is happening. And we didn't really have much kickback, but it was a whole process from reviewing the organization, what the roles were, who could work from home, could some share, some at home, some at work. And then we did a survey, and then we started talking to the people. We didn't do it as a mass town hall. I think that would be counterproductive. You've got to go down to the granular level of each team. So you explain the why, and why they have to come back to work, or why they need to be part-time, show them where the organization is and where they fit, so that they feel like they've had some kind of discussion about it as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Alex, do you have anything to add on motivating employees that are working from home?
Yes. Of course, first and foremost, we need to set purpose and agenda so that employees will know why they need to come to work or to report to work. At the same time, set proper expectations. For example, what are the things that needs to be done? Because of course, due to pandemic, people nowadays are scared to go out. So if we provide them all these things like purpose, agenda, and setting proper expectations, we can definitely motivate our employees on why they need to report to work.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, so we have another one from Minda. What does your experience or data show when it comes to the idea of installing monitoring devices to employees' laptops at home so we can check their productivity?
50-50. Research from our clients is 50% insist on it and 50% have had bad reactions to it. Again, it's the survey at the beginning, which was appreciation, feedback, communication, and trust. And I think it depends on what the role is. I guess in the BPO industry, and if there are KPIs on calls and things like that, there needs to be some structure or some kind of productivity checking. But then if you're in executive search, where it's really output driven, how many calls you make, emails, it can be 10, it can be 4, it can be 30 to get, it's the outcome, it's the output, that's what we're looking for. So I think, again, it depends on the position, it depends on the role that's being played. And again, it comes down to, Alex said, the communication, the plan, and the why, so that they don't feel that they're being, it comes down to that communication and the why. If you can explain why it's needed, and that it's not just, it's not just a stick, it's not just because we don't trust, but it can be because of productivity tracking, it can be because the client needs to know the exact numbers, and it just makes it easier. It's the why, it's always the communication, the why, so that people don't become suspicious that you don't trust them.
That's true. All right, so we have another one here from an anonymous attendee. How do you solve if the leaders themselves just rely on HR to do the engagement activities for the employee population?
On a personal note, it's a constant learning, it's a constant conversation, and it's a constant kind of, this is how it's going to be. And also because sometimes managers are not comfortable because they don't have, HR conversations can be very technical, particularly if you're doing, you've got problems with performance evaluation, or you need to let someone go. And sometimes it's just the managers are not trained, or they don't know how to do it properly, and they're nervous, and that's what's stopping them. It's not because they don't want to do it, it's because they haven't had the enablement to do it. So maybe if you've got some managers that are resisting, you have to ask the question, are you comfortable doing this, or do you need some enablement and some help? And then usually you get the turnaround, but it's usually because they don't know how to do it. They're not comfortable having those difficult conversations because they feel they might get it wrong. So we know that the labour law here can sometimes put us into difficult positions. And so sometimes I find, I've been here a long time, and I've been in HR a long time, and I know more about Philippine labour law than I do the British labour law or the Australian labour law. I never thought I'd know that, but it's usually because they don't know, and they're scared to do it. They're frozen in case they say something wrong.
Shang, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so there are instances wherein people think it's the HR's sole responsibility, employee engagement. But maybe I just like to reiterate that in combination and individually, both HR and management play important roles in ensuring the success of your company's employee engagement initiatives. So the role of HR is, to foster a culture of engagement, leading the way in the design, measurement, evaluation, and such of these employee engagement activities. And the end goal is, help attract and retain talent. The role of management, on the other hand, is, they play a key role in creating a respectful and trusting relationship with their direct reports. Like setting the mood rather for the team, because at the end of the day, HR may, do a lot of employee engagement initiatives, but if the team is not, in the mood or not engaged, it will be useless. But maybe also at the end of the day, know the goal in mind when conducting employee engagement initiatives. Is it to address burnout? Is it to address, lack of communication, or to strengthen team camaraderie? There is teamwork between HR and management for employee engagement initiatives. It's not just HR.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said in my presentation. And I think the question around, there's some, it always gets mentioned about happiness, and that, making employees happy. And I'm not accountable for any of the people in Q2's happiness, but I am accountable for building an environment that will enable people to be happy. I can do that, but I can't be responsible for the end goal of happiness. But the role of HR with the leaders in operations is to create that environment that they can be happy within the environment. We can do that as a leadership team, and we must do that in conjunction with HR.
Thank you so much, Shang and Sarah. So again, guys, we could see some people here raising their hands. So if you could just type in your questions in the Q&A or chat box, and then we'll just answer them afterwards. So we have another one here from Angelina. If you have any suggestions on monitoring and improving performance remotely, aside from looking at the key performance indicators.
There are so many. And again, it depends on what the role is, whether it's a team all doing the same thing or everyone's doing different things. And there are so many productivity tools and things out there. One of the things that we do on a personal level, because I think we're talking more at a personal level here rather than a systems level, is if you've got a working team that are doing, I go back to our background investigation team, because a lot of them are doing the same work day in, day out, same. So their operations head and their manager have a quick Zoom every morning where they all come into the Zoom at the beginning of the day. They have a bit of silliness. They talk about what they need to do that day. Everything goes well. They meet back at the end of the day and again have a little bit of silliness, and just kind of make sure everybody's doing everything, because all the productivity is in the system. So this is on a personal level, is just making sure that there's a touch point for them to have a chat. And they will then pick someone to talk about their experience. They will pick someone to talk about what went well that day. So really come down to a personal level. If you've got your systems in place where you're collecting the data and you're getting your productivity and you're getting what you need in terms of numbers, then it's really down to creating a system of meeting your team and making sure that they're still motivated and that they're still on track, and have cameras on, because unless you can see their faces, you can't see in reality what's really happening.
All right, thank you, Miss Sarah. So unfortunately, that is all the time that we have left for this Q&A session. Again, I'd like to thank everyone who sent in their questions, and I hope we were able to address them properly. A huge thank you again to our speaker, Miss Sarah, and to our panelists for today, Shang, Trinidad, and Alex Javier. Let's all give them a virtual round of applause. For any e-certificate requests, you may follow the instructions that you will be seeing on your screens, or you can send your requests through this link. That's bit.ly/certificate request form, or you can also scan the QR code with your mobile devices. Again, that's bit.ly/certificate request form for your e-certificates. Now, for the moment we have all been waiting for, I would like to announce our lucky raffle winner. Hold on just a sec. Okay, congratulations, John Carlo Gula. Congratulations for winning today's Faculty Express raffle series. Congratulations. For the winner, Giancarlo, please send us a DM on Twitter. Again, that's at SproutHRTech, so that we can send you the instructions on how to get your Grab GC. Thank you again to everyone for participating, and have a great day ahead. Guys, follow our social media pages and use the hashtag SproutHRExperts to be updated on all of our events. See you on our next webinar, and stay safe.